Our top focus we're on right now. NATO chief Mark Rutte has warned against the threat of Russian hypersonic missiles, saying that Moscow could use its new generation of missiles traveling at several times the speed of sound in a bid to target the NATO countries. He cautioned that the threat is not far away but imminent, as the missiles manufactured by Russia have reduced Moscow's distance to European capitals to a matter of minutes, and they could be ready to attack the NATO members within 5 years.
Could be ready to use military force against NATO within 5 years. 5 years. Let's not kid ourselves. We are all on the eastern flank now. The new generation of Russian missiles travel at many times the speed of sound. The distance between European capitals is only a matter of minutes. There is no longer East or West. There is just NATO.
Speaking at London-based think tank Chatham House, Rutte alerted that Russia is outpacing the far bigger NATO in manufacturing ammunition, and the alliance must take a quantum leap in collective defense. The former Dutch Prime Minister called for a 400% increase in air and missile defense to shield the alliance against Russia.
NATO defense ministers agreed ambitious new targets. The exact details are classified, but we need a 400% increase in air and missile defense. We see in Ukraine how Russia delivers terror from above. So we will strengthen the shield that protects our skies.
Rutte added that the NATO forces also need thousands more armoured vehicles and tanks, millions more artillery shells. The NATO chief proposed a target of 3.5% of economic output on military spending and another 1.5% on defence-related expenditure, such as roads, bridges, airfields and seaports. Rutte said that he is confident that the alliance will agree to the target at its summit in The Hague on June 25th. At the moment, 22 of the 32 members they meet or they exceed NATO's current 2% target, which was set in 2014. The NATO leader said he expects all to reach 2% by the end of this year. The new target would meet a demand by US President Donald Trump that member states should spend 5% of their GDP on defense. Trump has long questioned the value of NATO and complained that the US provides security to European countries that don't contribute enough. Last week, UK announced plans to build up to 12 nuclear-powered attack submarines and 6 munition factories to rearm the country in response to what it said were threats from Russia. Keir Starmer's government this year pledged to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027, but has not yet set a firm timeline for further hikes. Germany has said it will need roughly 50,000 to 60,000 more active soldiers under new NATO targets. On Monday, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that Canada would hit 2% this year. And well, for more on this and to discuss the latest statement by NATO's Secretary General, we're now being joined by Joachim Bitterlich from Normandy. He is the former German ambassador to NATO and former European diplomatic and security advisor to German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. Welcome to WION, Mr. Helmut. First up, your assessment of the statement or of the warning of the NATO Secretary General where he says that Russia could attack NATO countries in a span of 5 years. How perhaps is serious a threat?
I think Mark Rutte is entirely right, because he is underlining the real threat from the Russian side, from the experience of a war in Ukraine over the last years now. If you take into consideration that the Russians have today 200 or 300 hypersonic missiles, they have about 350 intercontinental missiles, and 200 from submarines, and 300 to 600 cruise missiles to continue any attack. You see that through these attacks, the NATO countries are really threatened. take the simple example, if you want. The Russians have stationed in Kaliningrad, in the Baltic Sea, Iskander missiles. These are the missiles with a range to 500 kilometers. They could threaten Berlin, if you want. If you add to this Calibre or KH-101 cruise missiles, there is a real threat, and the Russians are rearming steadily. And therefore, the NATO has a real problem insofar because air defense up till now is underdeveloped, and therefore Mark Rutte is right. When I look at my home country, when I look at Germany, it's underdeveloped air defense. We have still, let's say, 9 systems of Patriot missiles. We have only one Iris-2. This is the German development. We have handed over to the Ukrainians. The Germans have decided to buy an Israeli-American system, Arrow. But for the moment, the air defense cannot defend Germany itself for the moment. And therefore, it's sad, but we need to rearm in order to develop a certain deterrence against any potential Russian threat there. Because we have seen threats in the last weeks. Even when the Germans were talking about delivering the so-called Taurus missiles to the Ukrainians, missiles who are going till 500 kilometers. They are threatening near Moscow, yes. But there have been discussions reported from Moscow, but the Russians were discussing, well, we could attack Berlin, why not? And therefore we have to take seriously these threats from the Russian side.
Right, Mr. Bitilic, you do speak of how NATO countries need to rearm, need to overhaul the military arsenal. And you've also been a former German ambassador to NATO, with reports suggesting that Germany only has 3 years to acquire equipment and overhaul its military. And like you mentioned, that's the need of the hour at this point of time. What are the challenges lined up, not just for Germany, but also for the other NATO countries?
But please, if you want to build up a minimum of a shield against any potential attack, you have to hurry up, really. You have to go to, let's say, procurement in another speed than up till now. And when you are mentioning 3 years, I'm looking at, let's say, between 2028, 2030. It's clear. We have to speed up procurement of, let's say, decisive defensive weapons in order to protect our territory. If you want to have a real shield, well, rearmament of NATO is going till, let's say, 2032, as Mark Rutte has discussed with the defense ministers, in order to reach the 3.5 plus 1.5% that the Americans are expecting from us. But there is a real need of rearmament. Please, it's not easy at all. Not only speed of procurement, at the same time we need more soldiers. You mentioned the Germans will have to add 60,000 soldiers. How to do this without conscription? I've been in my youth under conscription regime. We have abolished it. We have stopped it. In this dream of an eternal peace in Europe. But there is no eternal peace in Europe. Look at, we needed a certain wake-up call through the events in Ukraine.
Right.
And it's not easy at all.
Right, Mr. Bitilic, thank you so much for joining us here on WION with your insights on this.
As always, with pleasure.